Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. We're just over a week into the general election now that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are their party's presumptive nominees. And the president is now really campaigning. Traveling to 5 states in the last 10 days, touting his record. Today, he was in Houston, Texas for a campaign reception where he spoke about the booming economy and told a joke that has been getting a lot of laughs on the trail. Quote, "I know not everyone's feeling enthusiasm. The other day, a defeated-looking man came up to me and said, 'Mr. President, I'm being crushed by debt. I'm completely wiped out.' I had to say, 'I'm sorry, Donald. I can't help you.'" Of course, while the president has been slinging zingers, all eyes have been on his Republican opponent, who owes more than $500 million in legal fines. And the clock is ticking on the largest of those. That's the $454 million judgment in New York, finding Trump liable for inflating his wealth to secure better terms on loans. The ex-president has just 4 days remaining to post a bond covering that massive amount. He needs to secure the bond by Monday, March 25th, in order to avoid paying the actual judgment while he appeals. In a filing earlier this week, Trump's lawyers claimed it was impossible to get that bond, that he'd been rejected by more than 30 companies. Well, the New York Attorney General's office disputed that, noting in a reply that Trump could break up the amount he owes into multiple smaller bonds, citing some precedent of other settlements that work that way. They also suggested that the problem is of Trump's own making, since he fraudulently inflated the value of his properties, which he now needs to use as collateral. Good point. Today, the judge overseeing the case ordered the Trump Organization to inform its court-appointed financial monitor in advance of any attempts to secure the bond. The order enhancing the monitor's powers also requires the company to inform her of any financial disclosures requested or required, any information provided in response to such requests, any representations made by Trump Organization in connection with securing such bonds, any personal guarantees made by any of the defendants, and any obligations of the Trump Organization required by the surety. Certainly seems like a good idea, I got to say, at a moment when Donald Trump is under so much pressure and so vulnerable and obviously desperate and might be the next president. Not to mention the fact that he's already been deemed too untrustworthy to do business in New York State. Now, Trump is still hoping to be basically bailed out by the appellate court. His lawyers are pushing for them to intervene, to come in and basically say he doesn't have to pay, claiming in a letter today that having to come up with the bond would cause Trump, quote, irreparable harm. I bet it would. But if he does not get the answer he wants from that appeals court, and that could be today or tomorrow, I guess tomorrow, if he cannot secure the bond by Monday, okay, the wheels are already in motion for the state of New York to start seizing Trump's assets. That's how this works. Bloomberg reports that New York Attorney General Letitia James has formally registered the $454 million judgment against Trump in Westchester County, north of New York City, where Trump owns 2 valuable properties. Quote, "It will allow James to more easily secure liens, should she decide to do so, on the Trump National Golf Club Westchester and the mostly undeveloped 212-acre Seven Springs estate." Trump's golf club in Westchester is located in Briarcliff Manor, features a 7,300-yard golf course, 101-foot waterfall, 75,000-square-foot clubhouse. The town has valued the property at $15.8 million, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not a ton of money. Now, Trump's Seven Springs estate was a major focus of the Attorney General's case, ironically or not, with Judge Arthur Engoron ruling that Trump wildly inflated its value. In 2015, the property was appraised for $56.5 million. Trump claimed it was worth as much as $291 million. It's the lower valuation, I think, that will probably be counted towards the penalty. Of course, the judgment against Trump is also registered in Manhattan, where the verdict came down and where the ex-president owns Trump Tower, valued at $99 million, an office building at 40 Wall Street, valued at $200 million, a condominium building called Trump World Tower, valued at $19.8 million. The Attorney General, we should note, is not even limited to New York. Some of Trump's most valuable properties are out of state, including Mar-a-Lago, the Trump National Doral Golf Resort in Miami, and the Trump National Golf Club in L.A. So Donald Trump's property portfolio is threatened. The Trump Organization, at least in New York, as a functioning, independent, ongoing concern, is kaput. It has a federal judge as a minder. On top of all that, here's the thing. The ex-president is hemorrhaging cash in all his legal fees. I want you to listen to this number, okay? We have new filings with the Federal Election Commission. They show that the Save America Political Action Committee, that is the kind of, I mean, for lack of a better word, slush fund. It's basically a bank account to pay his lawyers, right? They dropped $6.9 million in legal fees in February alone. That comes out to, listen to this, a whopping $238,000 per day. I mean, think about all the lawyers, all the cases, all the filings. $238,000, $250,000 a day. That sounds about right. And we also know this is basically what Trump's presidential campaign is all about. Getting back in the White House where he'd be protected from legal peril that right now he's bleeding him dry. The Trump-era Republican Party loves to brag about how it's now the party of working-class voters, but in practice, the party still operates in near single-minded service of large corporations and the extremely wealthy people who run them. And that focus on the 1% extends to the actual candidates themselves, who they recruit. As the New York Times points out this morning, an awful lot of millionaires are running to help Republicans retake the Senate this cycle, like former coal baron Jim Justice in West Virginia, former hedge fund CEO Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, commercial lending executive Eric Hovede in Wisconsin, and in the working class state of Ohio, Republicans just nominated a millionaire car dealer named Bernie Moreno to face the incumbent three-term Senator Sherrod Brown. Brown is a man who has dedicated his entire adult life to public service, actually helping the working class. A guy who, according to the Times, has a net worth of about $260,000. Brown is running for re-election in a state Donald Trump won twice. By some estimates, he is the most or among the most vulnerable Democrats running for re-election in the Senate this cycle. And with control of the chamber and the balance, of course, the stakes could not be higher. And Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat of Ohio, a guy I first profiled for a Chicago magazine called In These Times when I was 26 years old and he was running for Senate the first time, joins me now. Senator, it is good to see you.
That was a great article back then.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
But it was fun talking to you just about where you were coming from and what you're doing. And I saw you with a future. I didn't know MSNBC, but I knew something big. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, the thing that I was thinking about is I was watching some of the debates in the primary race of the Republicans there, and I read a profile of the junior senator of state, J.D. Vance. And one thing that is really striking to me is that the vision you had, the politics you had, and the policy agenda you had, which was to preserve manufacturing and strong, good union wage jobs and to fight for working people in the state of Ohio, you were very much against NAFTA and the kind of free trade consensus at the time in the Democratic Party. You were very much for industrial policy and helping folks find that vision has really come around from being this kind of weird thing at the margins to at the center, not just the Democratic Party, but in some ways the Republicans kind of trying to get in on the action too.
Well, and I remember I went to Johnny Appleseed Junior High in Mansfield, Ohio, and I went to school with the sons and daughters of steel workers at Empire Reeves, of rubber workers at Mansfield Tire, of electric workers at Westinghouse, and GM workers auto workers at GM, and carpenters and electricians, their sons and daughters. And those jobs began to leave when I was in high school. They went to find the cheapest wages in Alabama and Mississippi, and then politicians of both parties sold them out in these trade agreements. And it was clear the damage it did to these communities, to these families, to the sons and daughters that I went to school with. And it's clear to me that the Democrats are back where we should be as a party, fighting for workers, fighting for manufacturing. And that's what I've always believed. And it's what people want to hear in Ohio, and they want to see their senator do.
Now, it's funny that we read your net worth, but it was reported in the New York Times. But you're going to be facing someone with very deep pockets, and it's going to be a very expensive race. And I imagine they will spend a lot of money, and there'll be super PACs with people writing seven-figure checks, I would imagine, in your race. What do you see as the sort of key fight in this, or the key way you understand the contrast with a guy who's going to have a lot of money behind him, and the wind at his back in some ways?
Well, he's a guy that is trying to buy this Senate seat. He's a guy that clearly looks out for himself. He has actually said, I'm not going to work with anybody I disagree with in the Senate, which means, I work with people I disagree with. We get the PACT Act to help 10,000 veterans already in Ohio. It'll be hundreds of thousands. We got a pension bill where 100,000 workers' pensions were saved, facing 50-60% cuts. We've passed an infrastructure bill which is putting hundreds of thousands of labor union card-carrying trade union members, building tradespeople. I mean, all of that. And he really takes it to the next level that Ohio passed, as you know, Chris, by 13 points. You've covered it, a constitutional amendment on abortion rights. He thinks he knows better, and that's what some of these candidates are like. He thinks he knows better. He's still for a national abortion ban, ignoring what the voters of Ohio want, with no exceptions. In 6 weeks, no exceptions. So the contours of this race are clear, and ultimately it's who's on your side. I don't really subscribe to the left or the right, left and right, progressive, conservative. I mean, people know who I am. They know it's ultimately whose side you're on, and I'll keep making those fights.
You've been doing a lot of work and watching this on train safety. Speaking about sort of working across the aisle, you and J.D. Vance actually have been working on a rail safety bill after that train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. That bill has still not come up yet. It seemed to have a lot of support, but I know that the railroad companies have been fighting it tooth or nail. And I also know that you've spent a lot of time in East Palestine as the senator to those folks. How are those folks doing?
Well, I think it was the eighth or ninth time I just went back last week. And they want to get their lives back to normal. They mostly have. But I have fought to get the administration to make sure they continue to do health monitoring paid for by Norfolk Southern, because people don't really know their arms broke out in rashes. The Norfolk Southern has talked a good game. They've been helpful sometimes, but they've got to commit to long-term health benefits. It's a little, exposure to that stuff. Nobody really knows what it means. Norfolk Southern essentially did a controlled burn that put this stuff into the air that didn't need to be, as it turned out. So this is a company. It's typical Wall Street model. They laid off a third of their workforce. They paid huge bonuses and stock buybacks. They cut back on inspections and on heat sensors for the wheel bearings, inspections of the tracks. And look what happened. And they continue to get their way far too often with Congress. We're going to pass this bill. I'm hopeful it's in the next month or so. But the railroad lobby is really strong, just like the drug lobby and the lobby. It's up and down. You know that.
Senator Sherrod Brown, who'll be standing for re-election in the state of Ohio,
Chris, thank you.
Against Bernie Moreno.
Thanks for having me on. I asked people to come to SherrodBrown.com. We need a huge grassroots effort. So thanks, Chris.
You bet. Thanks a lot.